So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. Got some time, so I said I'd pop on with another Matheus Cunha video after doing the Vidat Mariki video this morning. It seems to be all strikers the Villa are linked with at this moment in time, and I think, as we all know, that is an area of focus for this team. It's an area that I hope gets better because, as I say, goals win games, and that's something that I'm sure Emery will want to have going forward. Aston Villa's season so far has been truncated with regards to goals. That we've gotten them in fits and starts, and there was a time when we actually only had 6 goals in the league, and that isn't good enough. So to score goals is something that this team is going to need to do for obvious reasons. But I want to take a little look, and I want to talk about this guy first because I'm not 100% sure where I stand with him. He's somebody that I've looked at. I think before we get into the actual look at what this guy actually does, and he does some things absolutely really well. Atletico Madrid recently have really plumped on potential in certain players, specifically in the striking department. So when Atletico Madrid signed the likes of Luis Suarez, they were looking for him to be a holdover to cover off the potential growth of the likes of Cunha that's coming in here, and João Felix that's now playing at the World Cup. And I think it's fair to say that for all the hype and potential that the likes of Cunha and João Felix has, I'm still yet to see whether they're going to be these world beaters that everybody thinks they are. Now, people might take that as a negative with regards to what I'm going to say about this guy, but I think that this guy obviously came in with less fanfare than the likes of João Felix did to Atletico Madrid. But I think that he's a very, very interesting character to look at when you look at him playing. He's gotten very few minutes. He's found time difficult to come by for Atletico this year, and I think the footballing fraternity sees him as having all the potential in the world. He's 22 years of age, 23 years of age, I think, maybe now. And I think it's fair to say that he hasn't realized a lot of his potential, specifically since moving to La Liga. So it might be an opportunity cost that Aston Villa might see with this player. I'm sure Emery is going to know him inside out from being in La Liga. And I think that there's a lot of positives you could take from looking at him. Do I think he'll sign for Aston Villa? I don't know. Absolutely no idea. I know he's been linked with a lot of clubs. Clubs still hold him in very high regard with regards to his potential. Manchester United were talking about signing him in the summer just past. I don't know whether you think that that's a positive or a negative on his ability. But I know other La Liga teams were looking at him as well. As I say, he is a Brazilian international, and he's somebody I think that's he broke onto the scene very early with I can't pronounce it. It's Sion, Sion. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, the Swiss team. And then he rattled up after a good season with them. He rocked up it in the Bundesliga with Leipzig. Obviously went down to Hertha Berlin, where he really made his name. And then from Berlin, went on then to Atletico Madrid. So he's moved around clubs. He's gotten a good footballing education. But what I think you could probably label at Cunha is maybe he's gotten an education in too many places so far, and he needs to settle down somewhere, and he needs to be utilized because, as I say, at 23 and a half years of age, he's going to want to find his niche, I suppose, and where he's going to fit in. The Premier League could very easily be that place. And I'm going to be honest with you, when you look at him and do a statistical analysis of him, he comes in very, very similar to Alexander Isak, who signed for however many million, was it 50 million, 60 million for Newcastle United? It just doesn't have the goals. He's had a similar career trajectory for him as him, but he just hasn't got the goals. But what he does have that's similar to an Alexander Isak is that he has a that he has the same kind of engine. He's the same kind of, he plays the same way, gets around the field very well, utilizes his feet very well. He's not the same height as him. But he's got that kind of engine, that kind of motor on him, the kind of the creativity that somebody like an Alexander Isak has. Not comparing the two of them directly, but I'm trying to tell you that they're of the similar age. They're of a similar age. They're playing quite similar positions. Isak has gotten more of a run of games and is able to put together more goals than this guy. But I think that this guy has some similarities to that type of player. So let's take a little look at him and see what he offers to the situation. So let me pop up my. So he's been linked to us by Matteo Moretto. If you guys believe in the tiering system of I want to say believability of sports commentators or sports reporters or whatever, Matteo Moretto comes in the second tier, which is obviously the second tier down of 5 tiers. He's been known to be of good standing, have good links, good sources, and to be a good source of information. As I say, he's the only person reporting this at the moment. How true it is, I don't know, but he's an interesting player. And we're all, as you know, whenever we come across interesting players or whenever we come across players that we think may fit into Aston Villa, or maybe even if they don't, it's good to talk about these players. So if you're somebody who doesn't think he's going to sign, watch on and try and find out how this player plays. This isn't us saying that we are going to sign him. It's more an exercise into seeing how he could potentially fit into the team. So I've got some statistics here on Matheus Cunha. We can see here on my radial graph. You can automatically see what he's going to bring to the team. He's very much a creator type of striker. He plays as a centre forward, inside forward, wide forward. It's a forward position. He's not so much a winger, and don't get that kind of confused with somebody like a Leon Bailey. He's not that latent winger. He's more of a creative force that plays up top in a 2. I think, and that's why I'm more and more getting kind of drawn to the players that we're being linked with. And most of these could be absolute horse manure, who knows? But I think it's pretty much known value that Unai Emery is going to be signing a striker of some sort, whether it be in January. I would imagine he will try and get one in January. If not, it will be in the summer transfer window. But what I'm interested to see here is that us going to a 2 up top, number one, would be pretty alien in the Premier League, because we don't see an awful lot of just straight 2 up top formations going on at the moment. I know there are maybe 1 or 2 of them out there, but it's an interesting piece. But I think what that will do is I think he's seen this to utilize a way to occupy centre halves, and also he wants to get certain types of players in there. And the great thing about playing 2 up top is you can be very much I suppose, tactically fluid when you play two strikers up top. Now, yes, you do need to have an unbelievably industrious midfield. That's why we've seen 4-2-2-2 situation with Aston Villa at the moment. That's why we've seen sometimes 4 central midfielders in there in that midfield, because you do need to get through an awful lot of work. Your fullbacks need to be disciplined, and this is all stuff that we're going to hopefully see Emery implement as the weeks and months go on, albeit we didn't see anything near that in Cardiff last night. But as I say, we all know why that match was there, and it was for a great cause, and it was more so to get minutes into the legs. So where would Matheus Cunha fit in? As I say, he's 6 foot, he's right-footed. You can see his heat map down there. He does tend to kind of drift around the field an awful lot. He hasn't gotten an awful lot of game time. We can see there he's had 40 games over the last 365 days. Of those 40 games, he's only started 8. Of those 40 games, though, he's contributed 6 goals and 6 assists, with a goal every 0.33 goal per 90 minutes of 0.33, which means he's basically a 1 in 3 record every time he plays a full 90 minutes. which is interesting if that's aggregated up, obviously, from the amount of minutes that he's played. But when we look at the situation he's got here, he likes to shoot. He shoots 3 shots per 90 minutes, which puts him in the top, nearly in the top 20%, the top 80%, should I say, of strikers in the Premier League. 40% of those, or sorry, not in the Premier League, in the top 5 leagues in Europe. 40% of those go on target. He is a bit goal shy for the amount of shots he takes. He does like to shoot. I'm not going to say a shoot on sight policy, but we will see he's no stranger to having a crack and backing himself to score from outside the box. And we'll look at a great example that he had when he played with Hertha Berlin a couple of years ago. And this is one thing I will say with this guy, because time at Atletico Madrid has been hard to come by, specifically 90-minute games. I did look back at his career, because this guy is all about potential. It's all potential with this guy. Stuff he's put on paper, you can see real good flashes, but he's not one of these people that we can look at and say, yes, he's really got a track record of scoring double-digit goals a season, because he doesn't. And the reason that he doesn't have that is because he's a young player who's been utilized in spot situations and has shown that really good potential, and he's never really gotten that full, apart from being at Hertha Berlin, he's never really gotten that full run of games that strikers need. And we all know that strikers need that to kind of get into a rhythm. So we can see that there. He shoots on target. One of the biggest things about him is he's got an amazing propensity to create shooting actions for either himself or for other players. So that stems from the fact that he does play in that kind of drop-off striker type role, the one that kind of hangs back and leaves somebody kind of, I'm not going to say lead the line, but you know, when you've got that staggered striker effect, I'm really struggling to remember what the name of it is, and it's the easiest name in the world, and I can't remember what it is. But you know the position I'm talking about there, and his actions, the actions that he makes with the ball at his feet, result in goals at a 0.48 clap per 90 minutes. Both of those putting him right up in the upper echelons of strikers within the top 5 leagues in Europe. So he's a real creator of the ball, this guy is. He takes, for a striker, he is 18.45 pass attempts, 71.9% pass completion rate, which isn't really anything to write home about. But what he does creates shots and it creates goals. And what we need within our strike force at the moment is creativity. We don't have it. Our strikers need to either do something out of the ordinary. You've heard me talk in this podcast before about our reliance on counter-attacking ability. If we've got strikers, if we've got players where the ball is played into them and they can create chances themselves or create chances for other people, as opposed to having to always be on the break, well, then that's a benefit for us as well. And we're going to look at a situation here whereby this guy uses his really dainty good feet to get out of a situation while playing for Atletico Madrid and to lay a beautiful pass onto an onrushing forward. He's not greedy. He takes a lot of shots, but he's not greedy. He backs himself to shoot from quite crazy angles. You could say that's the frivolity of youth. I don't know, but it's something that I suppose bears looking at when we do go to study this player in more depth. Looking at his at what he would bring as well from a possession-based point of view. He completes a decent amount of dribbles, but he is one of the best dribbling forwards in the whole entire of Europe. You know, top 5 European leagues, he's got a dribble success rate of 67.9%, which is absolutely amazing. That's better than the majority of wingers out there as well. He is I can't remember, is he the best or is he the second best, I think, potentially, of striker with the ball at his feet in Europe based on statistics over the last 365 days. So it's definitely a strength of his, and you can see it with regards to how good he is with his feet. And yes, Cunha is popped in there as well. Shadow striker, or it's more sort of shadow striker as opposed to the trequarterista. And that's where he plays. He does drop off, and he plays he plays centrally an awful lot. Albeit, I don't know, is there a striker that really holds their center anymore? I don't think you can do that as a full-time striker. And when people do, they almost play themselves out of the game. He is going to go wide, as you can see by his heat map. But you know, he is somebody who drops deep and gets onto that as well. Gets onto balls from there as well. He's rarely dispossessed. And look as well, I want to highlight the ball recoveries that he has. If you look at our radial graph there, It's one of the biggest things that I think we compliment the likes of Ollie Watkins and Danny Ings for, is their industry around the field, how they like to get into defensive positions high up the field, how they can implement the high press, specifically in Ollie Watkins type. But what we would see there between the three of these strikers, Ollie Watkins would have the worst ball recoveries. Now, that's not to say that he's not pressing at a high level. He absolutely is. All you need is a pair of eyes to be able to see that. But Matheus Cunha recovers the ball at one of the best rates in the whole lot of Europe. And as we know, Unai Emery is going to want a high press. He's going to want us to be able to do that, to allow our midfield to get back into position, and specifically allow our fullbacks to get back into position as well. So if you've got a striker who can occupy centre halves, who can occupy that ground and make sure that and I suppose really just to be an honest player, and not just be one of these people who's only there to put the ball in the back of the net, that can be beneficial as well. Albeit, I do want to say I do have some concerns about his goal scoring record as well, but I think that that's not a news to anybody else. So taking a look here at some of the games that I've watched and some of the pieces that I've seen of him, I think that this guy would fit in pretty well in a front two. I think he would fit in the Premier League. Ideally, he's in and around the same height as Ollie Watkins and Danny Ings. I don't have it here. And why don't I have it here? Oh, I do have it here. What I wanted to bring attention to is the aerial duels one. I'm not a big fan of that. He's one of the worst people at winning the ball in the air in the top 5 leagues in Europe. And look, it would be remiss of me to sit here and say, okay, that's fine, we can play around that, when I've just done videos on Marcus Thuram and Vedat Mariki as well, saying that one of their big strengths is they can win the ball in the air, and that's something we need. I very much think that is something we need. And maybe, as I say, if you could get 2 strikers in, or two attacking players in, I think that Unai Emery would probably want 2 attackers in, whether he gets both of them in January. But somebody with great feet like this to complement maybe a Leon Bailey on one side, and then also a battering ram to come in, might be beneficial. But once again, styles make fights, and I don't know what Unai Emery wants at this point in time, albeit that he has always had a bigger bodied striker, specifically at Villarreal, where he's played that 4-2-2-2 formation. So that's all I'm really going on with regards to this one. But Matheus Cunha obviously has his positives, and we're going to look at some situations here. So let's take a little look here. So I want to show a situation here whereby he sets up in a front two, and I think that this is where he would be utilized for Atletico Madrid. He's here and he's playing in a front two. Both strikers are, I'm going to call them diminutive for the point of they're both in around 6 foot. But watch the position that both strikers have here, and I think Aston Villa don't utilize this enough, because I think Ollie Watkins gets drawn to defenders and doesn't attack these spaces that we see here, and that's one of the natural striking. The natural instincts, I think, that I'm not going to say he's missing, but he needs to learn. And what we can see here is that we can obviously see here that 2 defenders seem to be converging on Cunha here at the moment. He's fully aware of it. The ball is picked up by the midfielder here. And what the midfielder does is kind of plays everybody for fools. Off screen here, there's a fella absolutely scampering down the wing. And the midfielder sees it and plays an absolute Hail Mary beauty of a ball onto his toe on this left-hand side. But what I want to show you is the starting position here that Cunha is here. He sets up as part of a front two on the shoulder. The ball gets swung out wide to the left flank. And what we can see here is that the 2 defenders still try to keep pace with Cunha. So his burst of pace on the turn leaves both defenders for dead here. And he's in a position here which I like. Now, I don't know whether he's thinking about getting into this position, so I'm not going to start saying that this is beautiful and how he's intelligent and everything like this. But the position he does get into here leaves him with an awful lot of options, because we can see here he hasn't overrun the ball, which is really important. And sometimes we see that from Aston Villa strikers. They end up in the back of the net as the ball is crossed in because they've overrun the ball. Now, we know Aston Villa like to cut the ball back to the penalty area here, and that's why he's positioning here. And he's not busting a gut at this stage. He's actually waiting for the ball to be played in when you watch it on video. So the left winger has the ball here, and he plays a lovely ball across the box where the arrow is there. But where Cunha is here, he's given himself the perfect position there. There's no defender that's going to be able to stop him if that ball gets cut back to the penalty area here. So he has options to go to the penalty area. I think he probably even has an option to get in front of the defender that's directly in front of him. But what happens is that ball is played across. It's a beauty of a ball in. I don't know if I've got it here. I do. And we can see the ball comes across and Cunha finds it at the back post and bundles it into the back of the net. Not the best strike that you'll ever see, but who cares as long as they go in? Our strikers miss those more often than not. They don't get in the end of them, or they've overrun the ball and they end up in the back of the net and the ball runs across the goals. It's very frustrating for me, for a team that cross the ball, because what we've seen this time and time again. And then what happens is, when Steven Gerrard did it, in fairness, it was one of the few good things he did. He started saying, okay, to stop us from overrunning the ball, let's overload the edge of the area with attacking midfielders, get the ball to the penalty area and try and get shots in there. And that's where we saw Coutinho show up in the last season an awful lot. Sometimes at the start of this season, but it's where we've seen Jacob Ramsey get an awful lot of good positions from his balls like that. So I think it's important to kind of see how that kind of metastasizes with regards to Aston Villa playing. Look and see how these other teams have played, and we always see that. That this pops up here from time to time. That Dino pops up in this position. Sorry, I'm just a small bit. I'm small bit. Yes, Villa reporter actually just reporting this now, so that's why I was a small bit caught off guard there. And they said that first contacts have been made between the player and the club. So maybe there might be more in this than we thought. So with that in mind, let's go forward to one of the next little slides that I have made up. And here we go. So versus Dortmund, he picks up the ball from a misplaced header. So this ball was played through. It was a misplaced header from one of the centre halves. Came out to him here and he picks it up. The ball actually drops to him in this position. He hasn't had a chance to run onto it or anything, so he needs to get it out from his feet. The option here, I think everyone would agree, would be to go wide to the onrushing winger. But what he does here is really interesting. And remember when I mentioned that he shoots, it's not exactly a shoot on sight policy, but he backs himself to shoot. So what he does here is he digs the ball out from under his feet. The ball only goes about a yard or two, and the absolute thunderbolt he unleashes from here goes straight into the back of the net. But the big thing here is his backlift, the movement that he has to get to the ball. It's all natural. And it's a situation whereby his... he gets it out of his feet. Ideally, he would have liked to got it maybe a foot further forward so he could have a right swing at it. But what he does here is he takes a pot shot and it ends up, you can't really see it here from this one, but it's a very, very blurry screenshot. But believe me, it ends up right in the top right-hand corner. And I thought it was a fantastic finish. I'd love to be able to show you guys videos, but I just can't. I've already gotten a strike for copyright infringement for something I don't even know what it was, so I don't want to test the waters and get another one. So I do apologize about that. So another one here here's an example of how he comes deep, and I've not highlighted him here. So so you'll see there beside the goalkeeper, he's got the ball. I don't know why I've got my cursor over there in the middle of nowhere. I do apologize. So he picks up the ball in the middle of the center circle, and what he needs to do here is he needs to skip away from these players, and he knows he's surrounded by 4 players here essentially. So he's the second of those 2 Atletico Madrid players that are in and around that part of the circle. The referee is looking at him there. Great feet. He skips in between those two players and immediately gets turned. And this is what I love to see with wingers or with strikers, is that kind of that dexterity of how you can move and turn the corner at the same time, that bendability, that flexibility that players have. Not everybody has it. Absolutely not everybody has it. And to be able to get low to the ground and turn while running is it's a God-given skill. It's very difficult to teach. But what happens in this instance here, it's 89 minutes, 45 seconds here. Atletico Madrid are 3-1 up against Almeria. And what happens is he's looking to get space through the center. So when we move this on here, 3 seconds later, he's gotten the ball out of his feet. He's left the 2 defenders for dead. He's bearing down on goal, and somebody has come across here to attack him. And it was absolutely brilliant feat to allow him to get out of that space, gain those extra few yards. But what he does here is he gets his head up. The ideal ball that we would play here, and this is a positive and a negative for this player as well, believe me. The ideal ball for him to play here is just to slide it into the absolute cavern that's open in front of him to get it out to the guy in the right wing. But what he does is he absolutely flat foots both defenders, and he plays it in between the two narrow defenders where that arrow is to the guy in the left-hand side who takes the touch across the defender. Defender can't touch him and slots it into the back of the net. It was a pass that I don't think, it's one of those passes you don't see because it's one of those passes that you're taught not to play almost, but he plays it and he plays it really well, and they end up getting a goal out of it, so that vision, that creativity is something that I'd like to see. I'm sure his manager congratulated him afterwards. I'm sure in the video study they went, percentage ball here is the one through the absolute, the motorway down the middle that's there. So, in future play the percentage ball there as opposed to getting it out. But look, it worked. And I'm sure if I was to watch for long enough, I could find 3 or 4 examples of where that doesn't work. But when it works, it looks really good. And to have that vision and that confidence to be able to play it is quite beneficial as well. So that is my study on Matheus Cunha. Whether he comes to Aston Villa or not, I don't know. Whether the links are true, I don't know. He's a really interesting player, all the potential in the world, very highly thought of in the footballing fraternity, and he's somebody that hasn't fully reached his potential yet. And namely, the reason being is because he backed himself to go to Atletico Madrid. He had striking options in front of him. And as we know, Diego Simeone doesn't exactly play the most attacking type of football. Maybe he's looking for an opportunity to move on. Who knows? But he's definitely somebody that is very good at keeping the ball, specifically when it's played to him on the ground. Not so good in the air. He's got a great eye for a pass, and as I say, he's not afraid to take a shot from far out as well. Obviously, the Brazilian coming out in him there, where he backs himself to score from every single angle on the field. So I hope you guys have enjoyed that. Couple of comments there as well. Yes, Damien says interesting use of the word metastasizing there, Neil. I think I used it in the correct format, but I'm not sure. I'm always open to correction on that. I do like to use the full dictionary of words as to when I can, but as Peter says here, he's a player that has been expected to be brilliant, but if you look at his goal record, it's quite poor, which puts me off a bit. He's had very few 90-minute spells. On average, he's played 36 minutes per game this season. He's somebody who's coming off the bench an awful lot, who the world knows has potential, but I think he's one of these players that needs to start playing 90 minutes, and that's the reason why his goal record isn't actually even that poor. It's 1-in-3 record when he does across, if you aggregate out the minutes to the goals scored. So it's yes, it looks poor on paper when you look at that, when you say 11 games or 12 games this season and no goals, but a lot of those games were coming off the bench, and I think that's context as well. Obviously he doesn't score enough goals, but then again the opportunity for him to the opportunity for him to score goals is hopefully going to be there when he does get 90 minutes under his belt on a greater clip, I suppose, with a club that knows how to utilize it. So that's going to do it for me today, guys. Thank you so much to everybody for joining. I really appreciate it. Give us a thumbs up and give us a like, give us a subscription if you do like that. Hopefully we start to see more names come through, and as we do, I will do more videos. So thank you so much for joining, and until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and all that's left to say is up the Villa.